Hey, art nerds, we are going to talk about how to use the grid method and kind of like how that process generally works. This just sort of gives us an overview of what this whole thing's all about. For more specific, like how-to videos, you'll have to see my future ones because this one just sort of gives you an overview on how the process works in general. Here we have the grid method, and that is essentially a method that artists use to break down an image into smaller pieces. Okay. So instead of just free drawing it, you're chunking it up and then you're recreating one piece at a time. And that gives you the ability to easily look at it specifically to smaller parts. So you're not like, oh, I'm drawing a person. No, I'm drawing these lines and these values. So you're focused more on one piece of the whole image. It helps you know where everything goes. I don't know about you, but I sometimes have trouble like getting like especially facial placements, like or getting the ears to the right spot, trying to get everything to make sense where it's located. And this sort of eliminates that issue. It tells you where things are supposed to go. It also lets you know how big things should be. Okay. We often draw things like our eyes too big or our noses too small. Okay. And this eliminates that issue as well, giving you sort of a direct idea of what the size should be, what the proportions are. That's the fancy word for it, for each of the things that you're including in your image. And then it also lets you know how each thing should be placed in relationship to everything else on your paper, okay? So you could start essentially anywhere on your entire image and everything will make sense versus if I was just like free drawing a person's face, I would have to start at a certain spot because if I started with, the left corner of the lip, okay, I probably wouldn't be able to get my image centered, okay? So the grid method really helps with a lot of the issues that we sometimes have as artists trying to recreate something. Now, the grid method is also extremely helpful with detailed images and maintaining the correct proportions. So making sure everything's the right size for each part. And a lot of times you have an image. So here's my example image. And parts of it might be a little bit more complex than you're comfortable with working with. But when you break it up and chunk it up, you have an image like this versus the whole complicated image, or like this. Okay, with a bunch of just simple lines that you need to create. And that's what happens when you chunk it up, okay? Instead of having one ginormous problem, you have tiny little tasks. So when you are creating your grid project, you need to first have an image, okay? And then for our assignment, we're going to be having some sort of cartoon or animated character. So it could be something from a movie, a TV show you like to watch, an anime, comic strip, a YouTube video that you've seen before that you're just like, oh, that seems like a fun character. I want to draw that. My character's from a TV show that I really enjoy called Final Space, okay? So animated something, that's what you're looking for, and go for some sort of character within that whole genre. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take that image that you find and you are going to submit it to Google Classroom. There should be an assignment available for you guys in order to upload this. If for some reason that's not working out, you can always email it to me, and it's a little bit of a slower process, but I can still make it work. Here, before we actually get started on our actual grid project with the item, the image that you chose, we need to sort of like get a good handle and get our head wrapped around how this grid method works, how that process works. So we're going to be doing a couple exercises where we're having one where we focus just on the contours, and then a second one where we add some value, throw that in there, so then you can work on matching the values that you see in a reference image, okay? And we will have some time in class to work on these, but there will be a point in which I'd be like, you gotta finish it on your own. So be prepared to spend some time on these assignments at home, and I'll let you know when that will happen. So when we actually start getting our whole project moving and that kind of stuff, we're going to be making our own grid on our paper. So we're going to be using a ruler, getting it all measured. So then the proportions are correct. So we have the same number of grid squares on our image and the same number of grid squares on our paper. Okay. And then we're going to have it labeled. And that is an organization tool that we'll be talking about in what future videos, and also when we start actually doing that grid practice together. So the whole labeling will make a lot more sense when that comes along. Then we are going to be drawing the contour lines and the major details of your portrait. So you don't want to go and square by square, and then like finish it with the vow and that kind of stuff. Cause then we still have all our grid lines in the way. So for how we're going to do it in class, we're going to do all the contour lines, get rid of all of our grid lines. So you have to erase them, and then you'll jump back and then add value to your image when it's all done. Okay. So you won't have any grid lines on it. We'll trim it down so you don't have the label there anymore. You'll just have your super awesome finished value drawing of a dope character that you really enjoy. So that is basically the whole nutshell of what this project is going to be. So stay tuned for future videos and stuff about how this whole thing works.